Well, I found out about the transgender Dipper headcanon, and I just have one thing to say about it. Screw you, Disney. But anyways, hello everyone and welcome back to another video. And after all this time, I'm making another Gravity Falls What If. It's been like, I don't know how long it's been, but since then I've made 2 The Owl House What Ifs and 3 Amphibia What Ifs, so it has been a while. But anyways, let's just get on to the video. I don't think you guys care about me talking, and yet I continue to. So in episode 2, season 2, a shape-shifting creature takes the form of Wendy, and Dipper has to figure out which one is the real Wendy. However, in this timeline, he just goes on with his first instinct and accidentally plunges an axe into the stomach of the real Wendy. The shapeshifter starts laughing at Dipper and as he just gets filled with a whole bunch of grief. Dipper then attempts to push the shapeshifter into the freezing chamber, but he isn't strong enough. Wendy uses whatever strength she has left to kick the shapeshifter, allowing him to trip. Seuss would then show up, seeing what had happened, and helps Dipper push the shapeshifter into the freezing chamber, to which Mabel closes and freezes the monster from the control room. Everyone then quickly leaves to get Wendy to a hospital. And once there, everyone comes in to see how she's doing. Her family, her friends, Robbie, and even Stan. Once everyone leaves, Dipper apologizes to Wendy, to which he replies that she forgives him and that she knows he didn't mean to. They go on. Wait, hold on. Words, dang it. They then go on to talk about Dipper's confession like they do in the original episode. Dipper then leaves and Mabel apologizes to Dipper, telling him that she should have let him wait to confess to Wendy, instead of forcing him into it. In episode 3, everyone would be feeling a whole bunch of grief about what happened to Wendy, which even leads to Mabel doing worse at mini-golf, but she would still end up challenging Pacifica and end up meeting the mini-golf ball people, and the episode would go the same. However, in the next episode, Wendy wouldn't be there to help with the puppet show, so it would be slightly worse, which wouldn't be a bad thing on the surface. However, Gabe, Mabel's crush of the week, would be upset over literally any imperfection. So during the scene where Mabel talks to the sock puppet Dipper, Gabe would come in and tell Mabel how disappointed he is. This allows Mabel to have literally no reason to continue with the puppet show, and tells Candy and Brenda to shut everything down. They hesitate for a moment, but then they eventually listen to her, and then tell everyone to leave and that the show was cancelled. Everyone leaves except for Seuss and Grunkle Stan, who stay behind and ask why it was cancelled. At this time, Mabel tries to get journal number 3, but ends up bumping into Bipper, aka Bill, inside of Dipper's body. They end up into a fight, which Bipper almost wins, having Mabel about to fall from the top of the stage onto the stage. But at the last moment, Grunkle Stan comes up and grabs the two by the collars of their shirt and asks what that had gotten into them. Grunkle Stan then takes away journal number 3, since it apparently caused these two to fight in such a drastic way. Bill eventually leaves Dipper's body from the exhaustion, giving Dipper his body back, The twins know they would have to come up with a plan to get it back. Episode 5 would go the same, just with Wendy's absence, until Grunkle Stan tries to steal the Willy Willy the Badger animatronic. When he goes out the front window and gets injured, Wendy isn't there to give him his back pillow, so he would just lie there on the ground. This allows Giffany that's how I pronounce it. This allows Giffany to have more control over the Badger animatronic, and when she corners Seuss in the bathroom, Willy is there to keep Seuss still while Giffany tries to download his brain into the computer. But Seuss is still able to destroy the Romance Academy disc by dropping it on the floor and crushing it with his foot. However, right before it is destroyed, Giffany puts her code into the animatronic Badger, and then she waits for everyone to leave, and then puts her AI into the weird chipmunk animatronic, who is left to roam the streets. Giffany will be back. Episode 6 would go the same, but in Episode 7, Dipper isn't worried about who the author is. He's more worried about getting the journal back. So he calls a meeting with Mabel and Seuss. He would tell Mabel to distract Grunkle Stan while him and Seuss look around the mystery shack for the journal. They would have eventually found the code for the door behind the vending machine and punched it in, revealing the underground bunker, which they would not only find Journal 3, but the other 2 journals. Dipper would put all the journals together and read the hidden blacklight messages on those pages. Shut up! Sorry, just background noises. Seuss would make his theory on how Stan could be the author, but Dipper disagrees in anger. Dipper comes up with an idea to destroy the portal, but at that very moment, the robotic beaver animatronic Giffany resides in comes through into the basement, and she would try to get back together with Seuss, to which he refuses. The three get into a fight, with Dipper and Seuss winning, destroying the animatronic beaver. However, this gives enough time for Stan and Mabel to come back to the Mystery Shack and go downstairs to see what had happened. Stan would deny knowing what that bunker was doing underneath the shack, but Dipper would call his bluff since he knew Stan put Journal 3 down there. Mabel would ask what the heck is happening, and Dipper would explain how Stan was making a portal that was so dangerous it could destroy the universe. Stan would simply state that he didn't care. Dipper would ask why he didn't care if everything he loved could be destroyed if the portal would to open. Stan would answer that it wasn't dangerous and that he knew what was on the other side. Seuss would ask how he knew what was on the other side of the portal, and Stan would answer that he saw what went in, bringing shock to the gang. Stan would tell them the story of him in Stanford, leaving out a few minor details, telling them how he was good friends with the author, who created the portal for some weird nerdy reason. But one day they had a fight that ended with him getting stuck through a portal. Stan tried to bring him back, but couldn't without the other 2 journals. Dipper still wouldn't trust Stan, but would be outvoted by Seuss and Mabel, whose loyalty for Stan is more bottomless than the bottomless pit. However, his anger disappears when he lets Dipper have all 3 journals, claiming that he didn't need them anymore. Dipper still doesn't believe Stan, so he goes back to figuring out who the author is. He would find out that the computer was made by Old Man McGucket and reach the conclusion that he might have written the journals, which Mabel leaves to which Mabel leaves words. Dang it! Which leaves Mabel laughing hysterically. She would remind Dipper that the author was on the other side of the weird portal thing, and Dipper would tell Mabel that he still doesn't fully trust Stan, and the two would get into a small argument, and Mabel tells Dipper that she'll help him confront Old Man McGucket just to prove he's being a little dum-dum, and I'm not talking about the lollipop brand. Dipper, excluding some of the details, is able to convince Seuss to come along as well. Dipper shows Old Man McGucket pictures from all three journals, where he finds the logo of the Society of the Blind Eye. Mabel, despite still not believing Dipper, would still feel sympathy for McGucket. The episode goes mostly the same, just with Wendy's absence. This allows Wendy to not put the idea of Mabel forgetting her summer romances, and she would why am I so bad at this all of a sudden? And so she never tried to, is what I'm trying to say. And when everyone fights against the Society of the Blind Eye, they might not be able to defeat them without Wendy's help. But let's say they do win the fight. When the gang gets McGucket's memories back, Dipper asks him if he knows anything about the giant portal underneath the Mystery Shack, but McGucket still can't remember anything. When everyone gets back in the car, Mabel points out to Dipper that McGucket said that something terrible happened while helping the author. That terrible thing probably being the fight the author and Stan had. Dipper apologizes to Mabel, but tell her he's still gonna keep an eye on Stan. Episode 8 would probably go the same, which is good since it's pretty dangerous to change the events of that episode for obvious reasons. Episode 9 would also most likely stay the same, but in episode 10, since Dipper has all three journals, it would have more knowledge on a Category 10 ghost. So he would probably know if the weird ghost haunting the Northwest Manor would be freed from his silver mirror by somehow looking at the woods. So the end of the episode where the ghost turns everyone into wood wouldn't happen, and Pacifica would never get that one moment of redemption. Where was I? Here it is. Episode 11 would come, and Stan would take the twins to the basement, claiming the portal was almost ready. They then go outside and play with fireworks until the government shows up and takes the Pines family to Washington. Mabel would still come up with a plan to escape and go back to the Mystery Shack, but this time when they go to see the camera footage, the tape suddenly stops before Stan could go outside, revealing that he stole the toxic waste. The twins would end up showing the tape to the government. The people there wouldn't say they're off... Wait, no, they would say that they're off the hook for right now, before searching the rest of Gravity Falls for the Doomsday device. Stan, Seuss, Dipper, and Mabel then go into the secret basement to see everything go down. Dipper is excited and thinks about all the questions he's going to ask the author. His faith in Stan is almost revealed. Until everyone hears a robotic voice say, "How did I do, Mr. Pines?" Everyone looks at a monitor and are shocked to see Giffany on it. Stan replies that she did great, and manipulating the tapes to make it seem like he was innocent was a great idea. Dipper asks how the heck Giffany is still alive, and she replies that if they wanted to defeat her, they probably shouldn't have done it in a room literally filled to the brim with technology. Stan says they made a deal that if she helped with the portal, he would fix the beaver robot. Dipper then angrily punches Stan in the nose, and with the help of Zeus and Mabel, try to shut down the portal. And the same things happen in the original episode end up happening, except there might be a little gag where Giffany would go into the incomplete beaver robot and try to help Stan, and Zeus would just karate chop her head off, and she's like, well, that's a minor inconvenience. But other than that, the episode stays the same, and Ford is finally returns home. Episode 12 stays mostly the same until the very end, where Zeus tells everything that just happened to Wendy while she's still in the hospital. Don't worry, folks, she's not dead. Episode 13 would stay the same, except Ford would reveal that Giffany also knows about the interdimensional rift. And meanwhile, behind the glass, she's like, is anyone gonna reattach my head? In episode 14, before Dipper can leave the basement with the mind-controlling ties, Giffany is able to insert her AI into them. Fast forward into the very end of the episode, when Dipper and Mabel try to control Zeus to make him the mayor. Giffany takes over his body instead, which ends up getting Zeus a majority of the votes, except for a few people who voted Bud. The twins question why they can't control Zeus, but also ask why Bud wasn't acting like himself. When Gideon reveals that he was controlling Bud, and tries to take the twins inside the mayor's stone head, Giffany inside of Zeus's body comes out from the shadows and transfers her AI onto the screen, which allows her to take control of Bud. She walks onto the stage and says that he forfeits, and not to re-add me to the list no matter what anyone says. Nobody questions it and disqualifies Bud for good. Giffany goes back into Zeus's body and says, now, let's win this election now, shall we? Dipper lets her take control of Zeus as long as she went back to the beaver robot after, to which she agrees. The election goes on as normal, but then Stan would rip off the mind control tie and tries to tear it apart, but is stopped by gasps in the crowd. Stan ends up dropping the tie, letting Mabel grab onto it. The next day, Zeus is announced as the new mayor. Stan and the twins make up, and Dipper fixes the animatronic beaver and puts Giffany back inside it. In episode 16, Wendy wouldn't be there to come up with the idea to take her hair... Hold on. Why isn't my brain working today? I'm terribly sorry, guys. I don't know why this is happening. In episode 16, Wendy wouldn't be there to come up with the idea to take the unicorn hair by force, so Candy and Grenda would end up helping Mabel come up with good deeds. They would do those good deeds, and when they come back at night, and Mabel somehow still isn't pure of heart, they would find out that they were being scammed, and try to take it by force. Other than that, the episode stays the same. Episode 16 comes around, and Giffany decides to tag along on the group's road trip. Dipper would still obsess over Wendy despite what had happened, and might even make a compliment on how she looked cute in the hospital bed. When Stan tries to give Dipper flirting advice, Giffany would laugh from inside the GPS. Giffany would give Dipper some of her date flirting advice, and her and Stan would probably get into a fight over whose flirting style is better. However, Dipper is more likely to listen to someone who's literally from a dating simulator over Stan. He uses Giffany's dating techniques, and Giffany is able to see that Suze is missing from the group at the corn maze, since she's still madly in love with him after everything. When the group is at the Mystery Mountain, and Dipper sees Stan's method in action, he decides to give it a try, but in the process breaks 4 girls' hearts, including Candy. Meanwhile, with Stan, Suze is with him because he has nowhere else to go, and therefore gets captured with Stan. Dipper and the girls help Dipper save Stan and Suze. Why am I like this? When the gang gets onto the Skytram, Giffany is able to make it go a lot faster with her weird technology manipulation powers. And when everyone drives away, they run over Darlene the Spider Lady. Giffany would admit that maybe her flirting style might be as bad as Grunkle Stan's, and they would all come to the conclusion that there is no one perfect flirting style. And the episode ends. Episode 17 would most likely go the same, and in Weirdmageddon Part 2, since Suze is the mayor of this timeline and has encountered Bill in the past, he wouldn't tell Bill to get out of Gravity Falls like Tyler did, and would just tell all the dudes to run as fast as their legs could take them. The episode continues as usual, but when Dipper meets up with Wendy, her injury still hurts, but she's able to walk it off for the apocalypse. Dipper would be thrilled to finally see Wendy again after all this time. Giffany inside the robot beaver would also be in the group of survivors, which Dipper isn't excited about, but is at least happy that someone else from the Mystery Shack survived. When the gang meets Gideon's henchmen, they might more easily take them down with Giffany's help. And when the group meets back up with Suze, Giffany twirls him around in his arms, which Suze is very uncomfortable about. Giffany would also learn a lot when Dipper gives his speech to Gideon about how he can't force people to love him, and that all they can do is try to be someone worthy of loving. After Gideon and his henchmen go off to fight Bill, Giffany makes an apology to Suze and his friends. Suze doesn't immediately forgive Giffany, but says it's a start. Part 2 of Weirdmageddon would continue as usual, except Mabel Land would heal Wendy's injury and would give Giffany a copy of Romance Academy, so can she return home even for just under an hour. Maybe it could even be a Romance Academy sequel if that exists in the Gravity Falls universe. But other than that, the episode stays mostly the same. In Weirdmageddon Part 3, with the help of Giffany, the creation of the Shacktron would go faster, but not too much faster, since it's just one extra person. Giffany would also help Suze teach Old Man McGucket about anime, and each limb of the Shacktron would need to be controlled by one individual person. One you-know-who can take control of the entire thing. And because Giffany is controlling the Shacktron, she is able to buy everyone a bit more time, allowing Stan and Ford to make up, and by the time Bill finally defeats the Shacktron, and goes back into the pyramid, everyone got the Zodiac working, and banished Bill's weirdness from this dimension. Now, before we talk about the very final episode, let's go over the Gravity Falls Lost Legends books. Face it would likely never happen since Dipper still sees Pacifica as some unredeemable person. As for Calm Mix-Up, without Wendy, Ford would probably have to use one of his many guns to help the group escape the evil graphic novel. Never thought I'd say that. Pinesborough's mystery would stay the same since the entirety of it takes place way before the events of the actual show. And therefore is not affected by any plot change-ups. And finally, Don't Dimension It, my personal favorite out of these four. Giffany would probably be invited since she did help save the entire universe. She would go on to help Stan and Ford save Mabel from the multiverse, and when Ford starts to feel suspicious of Mabel, Giffany would agree with Ford since there would probably be something in her coding to recognize people's behaviors, and Mabel wouldn't be acting like herself. And when the Anti-Mabel tries to send Stan and Ford to outer space, Giffany would hold Anti-Mabel still before she can eject the two. All the other Mabels would work together to free Stan and Ford. They would all eject Anti-Mabel into outer space, and the story continues on as usual. And now for the final episode. Obviously, Bill is already defeated, and there's no need to bring Grunkle Stan's memory back since his memory was never erased. Zeus still becomes the new owner of the Mystery Shack, but can now use some of the town's money to invest into the shack since he is the mayor. The episode goes on as the same until the very end of the episode, when Dipper and Mabel leave Gravity Falls. Bill, looking at the twins leave Gravity Falls through the mindscape, and says one final line. Guess I can haunt these kids for what they've done to me next year. This wouldn't be like some sort of foreshadowing for a season 3, it would just show that they only banished Bill. They didn't defeat him. Terribly sorry for how I've been acting in this episode. I don't know what's wrong with me today. But I hope you enjoyed it either way. Please, like and subscribe and all that junk that all the other YouTubers around this platform tell you to do. And, bye.